This YouTube is going to provide you with a quick understanding of the 3 or 4 core concepts around how we cascade the reporting inside organizations to match the cascading strategy. There are more details on each of these concepts in other webinars that you can attend at pm2consulting.com. There are 2 driving principles that we want to achieve. One is to make sure that as reporting cascades, it's aligned to the responsibilities inside the organization. And secondly, we need to make sure that as the viewer changes its view from one part of the organization to another, the user understands the new strategy that it's now looking at. So, for example, if you have one region that's expanding and spending lots of money in growth, and another region that is in a cost containment mode, we need to understand those different priorities, because if I look at the same measure underneath those 2 strategies, I'm going to interpret the data differently. Let's take a look at how this works. In a standard organization where we're going from the senior team, the executives, down to the frontline workers, people at the drive-through window or call center, there's a cascade that we often represent as this triangle, which might even be indicative of the number of people at each level. At the executive level, they need some form of scorecard that shows them the overall performance. I'm going to call that a level 1 scorecard. Now, they're going to have a bunch of questions. They probably need to drill down to the next level of detail. I'm going to call that L1D to stand for level 1 detail. Now, they're going to take a look at 100% of the organization's scope and the detail that pertains specifically to that. I'll give you a home example. Let's say you're looking at your child's report card. You'll see scores for their language skills, their math skills, sciences, and so forth. You're not going to see, though, measures which are important to them. Now, when you take a look at those measures, you can drill into some level of detail, how they performed on specific tests and homework assignments. But your child has a whole bunch more data than just what's in that report card, or even the teacher. They understand class participation, assignments that are done inside class but not scored, and so forth. So the L1 detail provides greater detail within the specific scope of that report card, but doesn't extend beyond it. What does that mean? It means for the teacher or your student, or in this case, the senior management team, they're going to need their own scorecard that describes the detail of what they do. So the leader in this L1 model needs to be able to drill down to some level of detail. But they need to understand that they should not be making decisions on the part of the SMT in this case. They're just gaining visibility in order for them to understand what's happening. And they may even be drilling into data that's 2 or 3 levels down. But again, the same principle is don't make decisions on the part of those lower levels. You're provided with that information to put your level into context. So at the SMT level, let's color them, for example, green. As we drill down to them, they'll also have their scorecard. Now it's in level 2, an L2 scorecard, and they're going to have level 2 detail behind it. And the same principles remain. The L2 leadership needs a little bit more detail, L2 detail, to understand what's going on. They need to be careful not to make decisions on the part of, in this case, the centers. And even though they're drilling into data from further down the organization, it's not their intention to make decisions at that level. Now, this structure repeats itself. Depending on the complexity of your organization, it could go down for many, many levels. Again, the concept is everywhere where we have a uniquely defined strategy, we need a new level dashboard, or in this case, scorecard, to describe what's happening. Now, at a certain point in time, there is no new strategy. There's no need for additional detail. I'm just going to drill into more and more detail around those specific issues. So an example of, say, a McDonald's franchise, once I get down to the store level, there is no strategy at the team or the individual level. It's just drilling into more detail around that one strategy which exists at the store level. So understand how these concepts drill down inside the organization. The next thing to understand of 2 other principles, one is we now need to present data differently. When I'm looking at an L1 or L2 or L3, not the detail level, but the top level, I'm going to be using a strategy map telling me the strategic objectives, the cause and effect relationship, and the overall weightings. And this allows me to see how the organization or department's performing in total. The detail is going to take each one of those and provide more detail around that performance, commentary, and so forth. So this strategy map and balanced scorecard will exist at each level of the organization, and the dashboard is giving you more detail. When I get down to the team and individual level, I no longer have a new strategy map. I'll use the same one, but more and more levels of dashboards drilling into those details. Another aligning factor to think about is time periods. So as we take a look at, for example, the L1 level, that might be looking out in a typical organization 1 to 5 quarters. The L2 might be looking out 1 to 5 months. The L3 might be looking out 1 to 5 weeks. L4, 1 to 5 days, and so forth. These time horizons, of course, are for PowerPoint purposes only. Each organization has a different span of time they look out based on the drumbeat and complexity of their business. But the concept is the same. As the strategy cascades down, the time frames get shorter and shorter, and eventually you migrate away from needing a scorecard that describes a strategy and just a dashboard that gives you the detail. So this framework is what allows us to make sure that we've aligned the reporting to the responsibility, and secondly, making sure that I understand as I move from L1 to L2, I need to take a different view of that to understand the strategic imperatives at the SMT level or at the center level and so forth. Again, this is just a quick flyby. There's 5 or 6 core concepts. If you go to our website on the Insights tab, we drill into all of these in much more detail. Thank you for your time.